that was 10 times the size of their own. And all of the troops were pretty much packing their daps, to be honest. So, in an attempt to increase their motivation, their enthusiasm, and their confidence, the general of this army was just like, guys, how can we ensure we're going to have victory tomorrow? And one of the troops said, well, let's go pray to Ares, the god of war. And the general was like, oh, that's a brilliant idea, thanks, man. So, okay, he gathers the troops, they go off to the temple, they pray as hard as they can. But the general decides to make this a little bit more interesting, right? So he gets out this coin, and he says to them, okay, if this coin lands heads up, then it means we've prayed hard enough and we're going to have victory tomorrow. If it lands tails up, it means we haven't prayed hard enough and we're not going to have victory tomorrow. So personally, I'd like to still be here tomorrow. Let's pray pretty hard. So he gets them all around and they pray really, really hard. And he gets this coin and he flips it up into the air and it settles into the dust. Now, in life, we're all faced with different opportunities and choices each day. And some of those choices and opportunities come in the package of inclusion. Not only in the words that we use, which I think are absolutely critical. We've heard from the minister earlier today about the power of inclusion, that person first, that person-centred approach. And I can definitely back it up. I've just been doing a PhD in athlete wellbeing for the past 3.5 years, soon to be 4, and hopefully that one finishes up soon. That would be a great Christmas present. But within that study, what we've found consistently is that athletes share a whole lot more similarities than they do differences. So while, we might have different labels, such as athletes in Paralympic or Olympic sports, female and male athletes, etc., etc., it's the athlete that comes first, that shines through. So we need to focus on what brings us together as people. We all have the same blood that runs in our veins. We all need to go to the bathroom. We all need to eat, especially athletes. I actually recently moved out of home and my mum's food bill has now decreased significantly. I think she's quite excited about that. But we all share a lot more in common than we do our differences. And sport is one way that helps people come together and focus on those similarities and those strengths rather than those differences. And personally, I can remember when I was 12 years old and went off on my first international trip, and it was to Phoenix, Arizona. It was the first time I got to represent Australia and wear the green and the gold. And again, I'm probably going to embarrass my mum. She's actually in the audience today. Hi, Mum. And she sent me off on this plane as a little girl, her 12-year-old little girl, and I was packing my daps at that point as well, with all of these other amazing athletes that I was going to be a part of that team. So I get on this plane, we fly over to Phoenix, Arizona, we do our training sessions, we're faced with 45-degree heat. We finish up our dinner one night and we're walking down this mall. And in this mall, there's all of these sprayers spraying all this mist, this water onto you to try and keep you cool. And here I was, this 12-year-old little girl, walking down, who's missing a bit of her leg, and there's the wheelies, we have athletes with arm amputees, also known as clock. We have all of these different people, all of these different athletes walking down this mall. And here's little Hannah Macdougall literally strutting her stuff. I was on cloud 9. I felt like I was part of my people, finally. And I was so proud to be included and to be wearing the green and gold for Australia. So the power of sport is to bring people together and to focus on all of our abilities rather than perhaps our disabilities. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about sport from that grassroots up to elite, both sport practitioners, sport managers, and people who are living and breathing inclusion within their own day-to-day activities. So it's my honour to introduce our panellists and our guests for today. So first of all, we've got Kerry Tavrou from Inclusion, who's the Inclusion Manager at Gymnastics Victoria. We've got Stevie Payne, 2015 Melbourne Cup winning strapper. Matt Lewis, 2016 Paralympic gold medalist. Dee Hall, who's a mother of a 3-year-old dynamo with Down syndrome, who's passionate about gymnastics. And then we also have joining us shortly, Melissa Coe, coordinator of the Disability Advocacy Resource Unit. So she'll be coming up on stage with us shortly. Thanks, Melissa. So if I could start with you, Kerry, and I'll just give people a bit more of a bio on you. So Kerry has been involved in inclusive sport for the past 7 years. And in this time, Kerry has been the head of delegation for the Victorian Special Olympics team and head coach for the Victorian 7-a-side Paralympic football team. Kerry is passionate about seeing sport connect people from underrepresented groups in our society and increase their physical, social, and psychological well-being. Kerry's been working for Gymnastics Victoria for the past 5 years and has seen an increase in participation rates for people with disabilities from 4,000 gymnasts to over 9,000 gymnasts. So, and interestingly, I'm just going to throw this in now, Kerry did not know how to do gymnastics, but he's actually now aspiring to complete giants on the higher bar. So I'm not quite sure what a giant is and technically how high the higher bar is, but maybe he can tell us about that shortly. But firstly, Kerry, could you perhaps give us some examples of some of the initiatives that Gymnastics Vic have taken to promote inclusion within the work that you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So it's my 5-year anniversary today, I've been lucky enough to work for an organisation that celebrates inclusion, is really proud of our inclusive initiatives and work. And I suppose a couple of achievements or things I wanted to chat about was about how we embed inclusion in our whole organisation. So I guess it's important to us that it doesn't just sit with one person being an inclusion manager, but it's a part of everybody's roles. So from our board, we have an inclusive advocate. Our CEO is passionate about inclusion. Everyone has KPIs in inclusion across our staff level. And then we support our clubs through resources and our coaches through education. So from top to bottom, we see inclusion as being really key and integral to our organisation. But a couple of key initiatives I want to chat about. I think we've got a video on one of them. The first one is an inclusive club app that we designed to build our club's inclusive capacity. So I was going out and supporting our clubs to become more inclusive, showing them resources, and it would just take forever. So we thought an app and using technology would be a good step forward to be able to support our clubs on a mass scale. So we have 130 clubs across the state. So this app was a good way of utilising technology to make sure that our clubs can become best practice in inclusion and support people of all backgrounds. And when you talk about inclusion at Gymnastics Victoria, it definitely means people with disabilities, but it also means newly arrived migrants and refugees, older adults, Indigenous Australians, people from lower socioeconomic communities, and LGBTI communities. So it's really about including anyone that isn't currently represented in our sport. The other program I want to chat about is a program called Aerobase. So Aerobase was again utilising technology to make our sport more accessible. We'd worked in the club space, we hadn't done a lot of work in the school space. So we utilised Jane Fonda and that approach of Jane Fonda getting into the living rooms, and I saw my mum do this for years on end, so she was probably my inspiration, to really get us out into specialist and mainstream schools. So we worked with some local schools and our aerobics technical committee to design a program or 6 sessions for people from specialist schools and mainstream schools to go through. And Liz from Ashwood is in the room today, who was a very big instigator in supporting us through this. So essentially, the students go through 6 sessions. All they need to do is have access to the internet to be able to participate. After they've finished the 6 sessions, they make up their own routine to their own music using the skills they've learnt, and then they enter it in an online competition. So that's kind of how we've integrated that technology. And the winner of that, well, the top 3 entries get invited to compete at our state championships, and it's like a pathway back into our sport. So yeah, that's a couple of initiatives that we're working on. But I'll just say that it's really through the push of Vic Health and Sport and Recreation Victoria that has I guess made us look internally and start to think about innovation and how we can provide our sport on a bigger scale. So Aerobase has had 4,500 participants across 3 states, and it's also getting into other countries now, which is far beyond what we expected.
Sounds pretty amazing. When you mentioned Jane Fonda, the first thing that sprung to mind was the brilliant green juice that I drink every day that's called Jane Fonda, from a little cafe around the corner. But in terms of that ability to reach out to different people in new and innovative ways is very, very powerful. And I think we've got a video to show you guys all just how powerful that has been for Gymnastics Vic.
I'm a bit nervous and a bit excited at the same time. Got a few butterflies in my stomach.
Very exciting to see so many athletes here, and I think it's been a great learning experience, and they're just so excited by the whole thing.
Honestly, I'm just so proud of tearing up. So proud of how far they've come. You can see a lot more progress with their moves, with their attention span, with their ability to cope with different environments, performing in front of people. They've just come a long way. They guided us really well into a routine that we have to include, as well as drawing on the students' dance program at the school. Yeah. Did we all have fun? Yes, we did.
Find out how your school can get involved with the Aerobase program, go to gymnasticsvictoria.org.au.
Well, I don't know if the rest of you are going to head home now and sign up for this, but I definitely am after watching that one. So, Kerry, we've seen that not only does this program help improve mental health and well-being for all your athletes, but it also is bringing communities and people together. And as the Minister mentioned earlier, we do need support in whatever our goals may be. If they are in sport or wider than sport, support is absolutely critical. I mean, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go the distance, go together. So what kind of support networks do you guys have in place to really drive this program forward?
So I suppose this is it starts with we try and support our participants through as many ways as possible. So we do have that online option. We can also send out coaches if schools need that. Some schools have rubbish internet, so we send it out on a USB. But it's really about, for us, working with the schools to find out what they need and providing resources on evidence base. We don't just make a call and go for it. We really make sure that we have evidence before we make decisions, and we always ask for feedback to find out how we can improve our resources.
Yeah, the academic nerd in me that's doing a PhD was just like, yes, evidence-based, that's what we like to hear. Because then we're going to be more effective in the interventions or the work that we do if we're basing it on evidence rather than, you know, that kind of cereal box type approach. So thank you so much, Kerry, for sharing those insights with us. So we're going to now move across the other end of the stage. And on the far left-hand side, so I suppose your right-hand side, I've got to do my left and my rights, we have Matt Lewis, who is a Paralympian and wheelchair rugby gold medalist. So Matt is a local Pakenham guy who, as a result of an accident, has been left with just a few amputations and a few injuries. But despite this, he's pursued his love of sport of wheelchair rugby, aka Murderball, which it's very aptly named. If nobody's ever seen it, I highly recommend you go out and watch a game at some stage. And he recently came back from Rio with the gold medal in that 1-point thrilling match final, which I'm sure is probably on YouTube and up to 1 million views at this point in time. So Matt loves helping others by sharing his journey, his learnings, and we're going to hear some of those today. And Matt's fun fact was that his younger brother calls him a wisdom giver. So Matt, do you want to maybe talk to us a little bit about that one to start with?
Well, I suppose just probably my nature, you know, I like to help, so, you know, I don't know, I just kind of see things differently, I think. And so then I can't help but speak up sometimes and just share something how I see it differently. So my brother's caught onto that and started calling me the wisdom giver. So one time I gave him a wisdom punch. So.
Do you still have your wisdom teeth, or are they?
I think so, actually. I think there's a strong correlation between the teeth and my wisdom. Yeah.
So guys, Matt also is onto the herbal tea. So if you want to get some of this wisdom afterwards, hook him up with a herbal tea. So just maybe, obviously Rio has been a pretty massive event for you this year. What were your expectations going into the Paralympic Games, and did you meet them?
Yeah, so I knew it was going to be like a massive kind of campaign, massive tournament. We'd gone there earlier on that year for like a test event. So I think in life, anytime you do go somewhere before the main event, it helps you kind of calm your nerves, get a bit of a feel for wherever you're going to. And so in terms of my expectations, my expectations on myself is I just wanted to perform, because, you know, there's a saying in wheelchair rugby that don't count your minutes, just make your minutes count. And sometimes, you know, on a game you might only get, 3 minutes, or, you might get 10 minutes, or 50, it can really vary. And so it's really about making each minute count. And I think that's, this is the wisdom bit coming into me, but it's nearly like in life, trying to find the precious moments in every event, in every experience. So probably that was the biggest thing for me, just don't screw it up, just perform. But I'm thankful that I'm in a team, in a team with, like a dominating team. So being in like-minded helps, that you want to, you're going there to win. And so I think in terms of that expectation of myself, I really felt like I played well. Yeah.
Can you maybe talk to us all a little bit about what it is like to be part of a Paralympic team? So what's that atmosphere, that buzz, being in the village? Can you give us some kind of behind-the-scenes shots of that athlete life?
Yeah, it was all as much new to me as it was anyone. Like, it was my first Paralympics, so I went in not really knowing. Some guys from the team, we had some meetings saying this is roughly what's going to be like, but it's nothing like a real experience being there. When I was in the village, like, the closest thing I can put it to was the movie, what's that movie? Hunger Games. It was a little bit like the movie Hunger Games, because there you are in like the dining hall, which is just a massive building, and like I'm a big fan of food, so it was a good place to hang out. But you've got like the dining hall, and then there was a foyer entrance, and people would just chill out there watching like a big screen like this and watching the games of people. So you'd see, as you go into the dining hall, you see people kind of heading left to go to the buses to go to a game. Next thing you see them up there, like in Hunger Games style, seeing if they win or lose, seeing if they survive, seeing how they come. So I always relate experiences back to movies for whatever reason, and so that was kind of to share with you. That was how I kind of understood it. But the other thing I related the village experience like, it was like a World Disability Fair. So I went in there, obviously just feeling as if I belong. Like it's funny in life, obviously, disability is kind of a minority, but you flip it around in there, and if you're able-bodied, you're like, crap, I better get a crutch or something. So yeah, like a couple of things that stood out. I saw like the third tallest guy in the world, and he was 7-8 foot. He was a tall guy, and he was in a chair, so no joke, that's just how he was, pushing around. And it was just amazing. I was fascinated by it. And he came from Iraq, and so I think they actually won. I think the volley, because he's part of the volleyball team, I think they won, because he would just kind of sit up the front when the ball came, he just like launched that thing back to, ground zero. But then there was the strongest bencher in the world. I think he was like a paraplegic or something. He was like, no joke, his arms were like the size of my leg, like bigger, he was just a big guy. So I saw some things that like fascinated me there, but there was one time where on the way to the diner hall, because a lot of the time you're either in your hotel, in the hotel where you're staying, at the diner hall, chilling out in between, or at your games. And so there was another experience I saw where there was a guy in a wheelchair, then there was another small statured sort of person hanging on behind, and then behind them was like an able-bodied, or a guy, with like a prosthetic pushing both of them. So it was just really eye-opening, and I honestly loved it. I loved it. Don't have to say much more to that.
So bring on Tokyo 2020. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, and this is a life of an elite athlete, that you train hard. You train 5-6 days a week, and it's a big commitment. So I've just come off 2 months, of just being able to disconnect, take a break from travelling in a sense, because you're always on the road. So for me, I'm really just taking it one day, 1 week at a time. So I'm going back next year to training, and I'm just letting it unfold. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan, living the moments rather than the days. All I can say though is that I'm glad I'm not that guy's mum and had to feed that 7-foot volleyball player. That would have been an interesting food bill as well. Yeah. Are you happy I'm a little bit shorter than that one, Mum? So Matt, is there any advice that you could give organisations who are looking to make it easier for people with disabilities to participate in sport?
Yeah, I think just try and identify with. See, I was never into sport. I love playing with my mates back at school and that sort of thing. But it wasn't until I had an accident that I ended up finding myself in a position where I felt like I need to try something different. And so I took up rugby just because it was a happenstance kind of moment. But for me, it really kind of fitted different things, I suppose, in my personality. So I suppose for the parents to identify their child and know their child enough to kind of know what would be a general, like a natural extension of who they are. So if they just love dancing around, then you're not going to throw them in cricket, but you might throw them in dance, or you might throw them in gymnastics. And then if they love throwing a ball around, then you're going to be thinking, rather than maybe kick a ball, or unless they're a goalie, you want to try and, I think, gravitate, just let the child reveal the sport that they actually are interested in, I think.
Yeah, just if they are an amputee, make sure their leg is still attached. If they go into ball sports, it is a bit of a downfall for us. But again, working on those strengths, which has been a common theme this morning, so focusing on what people can do rather than what we can't do. Thanks, Matt, for all of those insights, and looking forward to hearing more over that peppermint tea.
I have just got one more thing, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Okay, cool. So, travelling, it's really opened my eyes, and that's something my sport has given me. And so, going to Rio, going to even Bali, I had an opportunity there to be an ambassador. Going to different countries, you see accessibility and inclusion through contrast. And so I would say, when I definitely went to Bali, it was rickety. Even Jakarta, their main island, you'd have a footpath and be over drains. So you had these big sort of concrete slabs on top that a lot of them were broken, and there wouldn't even be curb cuts onto the path. So there was no way to get on the path, let alone actually travel it. And I don't know if you've ever seen a lot of these third world countries, there's a lot of traffic on the road. It took us 3.5 hours to travel about 20-30k from one place to another. It was pretty hectic. But they have a lot of motorbikes on the road, but we had to travel on the road, And so the thing I want to say to that is that we've come a long way. I've seen countries that I would call in the dark ages with access and inclusion. And so I'm very thankful when I do come back to Australia that I know that I don't have to, push down the street and have to dodge, or try and navigate my way on the road because we have, come a very long way. So
we have, and we're going to make great steps in the future as well, especially with the rollout of the NDIS.
There's always barriers, but I'm just thankful that we're at. So
it's good to be a true Aussie.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, our third panellist for this morning is Stevie Payne, champion horse strapper. So Stevie is a bubbly, positive and funny 33-year-old and was the second youngest of a large family in a small town of Miners Rest, which is about 4k or so from the west of Ballarat. So Steve, I think I was actually pretty close to you yesterday when I was out on the Buninyong TT course just near Ballarat, and it's a little bit colder there, I believe, generally speaking.
Than most mornings.
Yeah, for sure. And I was talking to you earlier that, you've got to get out there, rain, hail or shine, and do your job. So you started strapping when you were 22 years old at the DK Weir stables, and you've been strapping there ever since. And you've strapped many champion horses, including the Prince of Penzance 2015 Melbourne Cup winner. So it must have been an amazing moment for you and your sister, Michelle Payne, to win that Melbourne Cup last year. So can you just tell to everyone who's here today what a typical day for you involves?
So I follow horses and all follow every other sport. Was winning mainly.
It's pretty good to win, isn't it? And so that was obviously the pinnacle for you last year. Can't get much higher than that. How long have you been working in the stables for?
I've got to say about 10 years.
10 years. So that's a good decade. So we're probably running close there to the 10,000 hour mark or so. What did you do on that day of the Melbourne Cup last year?
I was waiting for Michelle to get over the line.
Were you telling her to hurry up a
I
little
wanted
bit?
Michelle to win. Better than Melbourne Cup. One of the biggest one in the world.
Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about that race? What was that race like for you?
That was amazing. That was a dream. Always dream come true. I never trapped Melbourne Cup. Now I have.
It's pretty special, and I think we heard a few woohoos out there, so feel free for a round of applause. I mean, Melbourne Cup doesn't have And so, what are you going to do now after you've done that?
Just keep on working.
Keep working hard?
Yeah.
What other goals, or what else do you want to achieve?
No, really, just be horses. I love horses.
Love of horses.
Yeah,
So it's that passion for you that's coming through there.
it is.
Awesome. Some, probably shouldn't say any horse jokes, but we'll save them for later. But Stevie, I'm just curious, do you have any advice for other people with disabilities who want to get involved in the employment industry or even the racing industry?
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And just enjoy every horses in the stables and working with the other workers.
So,
That's the main quality in that, because all the workers as we do put in.
for sure. So we've got to put in the
More
hard work.
workers, sorry,
Yeah,
more
no,
workers, more easy.
definitely. So if you have that good support team around you,
Yes, it is. We got over 50 people working for Darren.
wow, 150 people. Do you know all their names?
Not all of them. So,
Really? Maybe 140 or so.
like I say with the horses, we got over 150 on horses.
And do you know all their names?
No. I get helped by the other workers.
So Stevie, it's really about enjoying what you do, being passionate, and surrounding yourself by like-minded people. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for all of those insights into your journey, and we'll all be keeping an eye out on where you head next, especially when the Melbourne Cup rolls around next year.
Maybe in May in Wollongong Carnival, that's our big thing over there. So I haven't probably quite a few horses.
Okay, so team, you heard it first. May next year, wonderful. We're going to be looking out. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Stevie.
Thank you.
So moving on to our fourth panellist, Dee Hall, who's the mother of young gymnastics star Amelia. She has 3 energetic daughters, all under the age of 7, and Dee's youngest daughter, Amelia, who's currently 3 years old, has Down syndrome and started at the Peninsula Gymnastics Club in March 2015. Amelia enjoys gymnastics she's enjoyed it since day one and continues to go every single week, and it was the added bonus that her sisters could join in too. So this regular training has benefited Amelia in many different ways, such as enhancing her motor skills, her upper body strength, and Dee believes that the regular training has reduced the amount of OT and physio appointments. And as we know, being athletes or anybody else involved in that physio and OT department, sometimes we feel like we're putting their children through schools, the amount of time we see them. So anyway, the staff and gymnastics coaches at gymnastics have been fantastic in working with the parents and the kids of developing an inclusive program that people of all abilities can participate in. And once Amelia starts school, Peninsula Gymnastics has stated that she will be able to attend regular classes that will incorporate routines from Special Olympic competitions. So Dee, can you tell us a little bit about how Amelia got involved in gymnastics?
It was actually a chance meeting. Beth, one of the owners at Peninsula Gymnastics, I saw her at the coffee shop and she mentioned that they were starting the program and suggested that I call Holly. Amelia wasn't quite 2 yet, so the program's from 2 to 8, correct me if I'm wrong. She was 22 months, and after speaking with Holly, she said, well, bring her in, we'll see how she goes, and we've been there ever since.
So you guys got hooked by the sounds of it.
Yeah, so, and my older two have their own classes as well that they go to, so sort of have to keep Amelia away from that, otherwise she's, yeah. We walk in the door, her shoes come off, and she beelines to whatever activity she feels like. Hi!
Perhaps we'll have a bit of a show of the routine quite soon. So in what ways do you think the gymnastics has benefited Amelia?
Just the upper body strength, even her fine motor skills. I think it incorporates like your OT, your physio, you have your music therapy all in one. Her climbing ability is out of control.
There's now padlocks on all the cupboards.
Her confidence is definitely there. Yeah, it's just, I guess, all round huge improvement. A lot of the mums that I've spoken to from my time groups and that when I start talking about gymnastics, I'm starting to get funny looks as if, yeah. I'm like, you know, I'm not crazy, I'm just, yeah, I'm passionate, I believe in it, and yeah, it's just a shame that it's not so, I guess, not as widely available everywhere. I've got parents from Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia that all want to do it, but yeah, just don't have the resources up there.
Yeah, so is that something you think we could improve upon in the future?
Yeah, and I think especially like with the NDIS rolling in, you've got to, it's $160 an hour, and if you can't get that incorporated into your plans, like some parents have been saying that, well, they can get this service, but they've got to choose between these two services, and yeah, with the, I guess, the funding from Special Olympics and everything, it's affordable.
So cost does come into it in what we do and in inclusion, and we've heard now that there's resources that are being rolled out, but something to look forward to as well.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, I think everyone, it's time to see Amelia in action. What do you think?
My sister just cringed at that one.
Every time I'm here, in the world, I get new energy. It feels great to just get out there and try my best. If I win, that's awesome. I'm just really proud of myself and everyone around me.
I think being able to see Amelia keeping up with the other kids gives you that perception of, well, you don't put limits on your kids, you don't put limits on their abilities. They can only really do what you let them do.
This is like a little kind of mini program for the bigger and broader things that happen to kids. Things like school, things like our workplace. We have to take turns and we have to follow routines. It's kind of building at a very rudimentary level, things that ultimately are going to serve us really well in our development in life.
What's not to like about winning? Simply what's not to like? We can't keep the bed. For the national day, I don't know how I did it. I won and I got gold.
The difference between doing gymnastics as a physio compared to a one-on-one, I'd say gymnastics is 100 times better. It's more of a game. They don't realise that they're doing the physio.
Higher order things like cognitive skills, like working memory, fine motor skills, and the gross motor skills, and the coordination, and of course not to mention the physical aspect and the well-being. I can see it kind of really being beneficial on just so many different levels.
Just watching your child get out there and have fun and thriving at the same time, she's got a lot more confidence in herself. Like me, being able to let go.
They're always there for me when I need them and support me like a real family should. Get involved at specialgymnastics.org.au.
Well, I'd like to thank all of our speakers so far for sharing all your insights and your journeys with us. And our last speaker is Melissa Coe, who is the Coordinator of Disability Advocacy